Schönen guten Morgen and welcome to our webinar. Especially, it's a very early one in Austria, so I'm very grateful that so many of you joined us this morning to learn a bit and hear about from experts about business process management and especially business process outsourcing, BPO, in the Philippines and in Malaysia. As I said, very warm welcome from myself here. I'm Christina Stieber and I'm speaking to you from Manila. And I also have my colleagues with me from Kuala Lumpur, which is Reinhard Zimmermann. I know most of you have already been, and thanks to what we've been living through, like pandemic times, you have been in tons and tons of webinars over the last couple of months. So I will keep the housekeeping remarks really short because you all know how it works. You know the drill. If you have a question, there is a box, it's called questions. Please submit all your questions, everything that you want to know from our speakers, from our expert talkers. You just type in the question and we'll be happy to answer the questions in the end. The presentations that you're going to see, as well as the webinar itself, you will be available later on for you. The webinar is recorded and you can then watch it over and over and over again on our YouTube channel, which then we will also give you that address with the email you will receive at the end of this webinar. The webinar will take about an hour and it will give you an idea, an insight, an overview over the BPO industry in those two countries, in the Philippines and Malaysia. And it's an important industry, especially if I can talk from the Philippines. It's one of the major industry sectors in the Philippines. And the same apparently goes also for Malaysia. So we will try to tell you, give you a bit of an insight in what this industry is all about and what you can take away for yourself, for your company, for the possibilities for your Austrian company to take advantage of that, to use that, to maybe invest it, use the offer that is out there, and also learn a bit about the trends of BPO and how that can actually make your work easier, make your doing business more efficient, and maybe save not just costs, time, and then drive you forward in a time when this pandemic is finally going to be over. If you just go on the next slide, and I will. It's just going to be a short overview. As well, that one I already told you, so you were listening faster than I was talking. If we go on the next slide, the next after that, here, yes, that would be the view of the Philippines in Makati, the business center in Manila. And the next slide then will give you just a short overview of the Philippines, the BPO sector, which is really a force among the industry sectors in the Philippines. And I'm not going to take much away from the speaker that is coming up. He's going to talk about that in more detail about the BPO industry in the Philippines. But just to give you an idea, it's 1.3 million direct jobs that are created by this industry. So the BPO industry in the Philippines is really the largest private employer. And BPO is not just what we usually think of, call center. No, BPO is much more. BPO is game development, is software development, is back office, animation. It's also a lot of work that is being done in the medical field right now, medical transcripts, for example, that are happening. So BPO and outsourcing, I know it sometimes has a bad tone to it, a bad taste to it, because it says, we're taking jobs away from one country, bring it to the other. But on the same token, outsourcing is also a business strategy, and we want to concentrate on that. We want to concentrate on how you can incorporate that as a business strategy to improve productivity, to improve agility, and also customer satisfaction. And at that point, I'm going to hand over to our first speaker, and I'm very pleased to present to you Mr. Ray Untal. Ray is really the voice of the Philippine IT-BPM industry, and Ray has an extensive experience. He has been 16 years with Accenture and was also promoted due to his successful performances to managing director in 2006, and is now also the president of EPUB, which is let's say the industry association for the IT-BPM industry. And I'm very happy and very honored to have him actually take time to speak to us and present to you what the BPO industry in the Philippines is all about and what is in there for you as Austrian companies. So hello, Ray, and I'm looking forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina, and good day to everyone. Thank you once again for having us here today and to be provided with this unique opportunity to share with you a little more insight onto the IT-BPM industry here in the Philippines. So perhaps if we can move on to the next slide, please. Now, some of you may already know this. The IT-BPM sector started in the Philippines in the 1980s with very basic encoding, some in-house software development, and programming. And over the course of several decades, have naturally evolved both in scale and breadth of the services. Now, more than 30 years down the road, the industry now offers more complex and varied services that go beyond traditional call center work, which which we became very popular with, and now utilize digital platforms and solutions. Worth highlighting that this is an industry which is considered as the country's largest job generator and one of its biggest private employers. Now, the Philippines is the world's second largest IT BPM market next to India in terms of headcount and revenue. And we are truly proud of our status as a preferred third-party service provider and an integral part of the global services delivery landscape. Now, companies partner with us to develop domain expertise, develop niche capabilities, and attain competitive advantage, as well as to leverage and quickly build digital technologies and capabilities to remain agile. Now, currently, there are approximately 1,300 IT BPM companies in the country with competencies in, obviously, contact center work, front and back office operations, have developed domain expertise in various industry verticals. Obviously, IT and software development is a staple. We're growing heavily on healthcare, including engineering and creative services. Now, if we can move on to the next slide, please. As we have just mentioned, there are, as we have just mentioned, there are roughly 1,300 companies that have chosen to set up shop or locate here in the Philippines because of some very key competitive advantages. Now, over the years, the Philippine IT BPM sector has been developing capabilities in not just transactional and horizontal functions, such as IT, HR, finance, and accounting, but also in complex and core functions, including supply chain management, banking operations, marketing operations, legal processing management, and many others. There's a lot of focus given on expanding the infrastructure here in the Philippines. And while you may not have heard of this yet, there's an ongoing build infrastructure program being championed by the national government, which will continue to be a key priority for us as we expand not just within the metro cities, but in the countryside as well. We are equally proud of the very strong linkages, which I will highlight later, formed with our colleagues in government, academe, and allied industries like telecoms and real estate, which allows us to jointly craft medium to long-term strategies that enable the industry to get ahead of the curve. Now, if you can move to the next slide, please. And now zooming in on the talent that is available, we take pride in the country's world-class quality workforce. It is without question one of the main reasons why the IT-BPM industry is the economic powerhouse that it is today. We graduate over 700,000 higher education students, no, each year from disciplines such as business management, finance, engineering, IT, medical healthcare, and others. We also have a very high literacy rate, in excess of 98%, which we believe is one of the highest globally, and a significant population of young, digitally savvy, and very active internet and social media users. But what truly sets the Filipino talent apart is our emphatic and customer-centric brand of service. And in addition to being creative, emotive, and service-oriented, Filipinos are likewise known all over the world to be agile, collaborative, innovative, and very resilient. Our innate affinity to other cultures also make us highly adaptable to the needs of our clients. Now, if you can move on to the next slide, please. Now, undoubtedly, the Filipino talent is what propelled the Philippines to become the world's leading provider of voice services. I don't think that's a secret. But given that, human capital development has been and continues to be a key area of focus in sustaining the growth of the IT-BPM sector and maintaining the Philippines' competitive advantage in the global marketplace. From traditional contact center capabilities, as you can see in this very busy slide, we have long since grown and strengthened our portfolio of non-voice services and have expanded both onto horizontal key offerings covering multiple vertical industries. And to name a few, healthcare information management, 3D animation, game quality assurance, IT infrastructure, IT development and support, engineering design, financial analysis, HR support services, and many others. Next slide, please. Now, this pivot to higher value services has likewise enabled us to sustain our growth momentum through the years, as demonstrated by our 2019 headcount and revenue figures. Again, just for your consumption, we closed last year with the number of full-time employees in the country increasing by a little more than 70,000 and registering a 5.8% growth compared to 2018. This has brought our total headcount to 1.3 million Filipinos, which is directly employed by this industry. Meanwhile, this industry likewise recorded revenues in excess of $26 billion, or a 7.1% jump from the previous year. Now, these numbers that you see here show that the industry growth is closer to the, just go back to the previous slide, please. Is this number that you see here in terms of revenue and headcount is closer to the higher range of the recalibrated figures that we had for ourselves leading to our roadmap to 2022. And that despite global and domestic headwinds, obviously these are all pre-COVID, the Philippines remains competitive, relevant, and thriving. Now, growth in the last year, not yet in 2020, I'll get to that, no, was driven largely by existing players, which expanded not just in Metro Manila, but also in the countryside, including, Bacolod, Cebu, Clark, Davao, Iloilo, and others. And it just goes to show that when investors and locators come here, they are not necessarily confined to Metro Manila for them to grow their business. we are expanding within the Philippines archipelago, and that expansion will continue. Now, moving on to the next slide, and this is where I now start talking about how we have responded to the COVID-19 pandemic. And if we reflect back, as we entered 2020, as a country, we were faced with a new set of obstacles that obviously was brought about by the pandemic. However, despite this less than ideal circumstance that we got into, the sector continued to demonstrate its resilience and enduring role as a major economic driver. And Christina, who has been here, can attest to this. The IT-BPM industry was declared an essential industry very soon after the lockdown began in mid-March. And it was during that period that our organization, IBPAP, was able to gain substantial support from the government and, of course, the interagency task force that we were working with, which led to a number of special concessions for the sector to mobilize an on-site skeleton workforce and enable work from home operations. And from just 50% at the start of the lockdown, the sector has been able to improve its productivity to 73% in May. And as restrictions started to ease, this figure eventually went up to 90%. And where we are at now, we are running at 95%, almost very close, in excess of 95%, in fact, very close to our pre-COVID numbers. And our ability to render these essential services to both domestic and equally, if not more important from a scale standpoint, international clients is indeed a welcome sign of the industry's recovery. And when we started looking at other insights from government as well as allied sectors, we see that investments have started to continue to grow even during the pandemic. And in fact, according to the Philippine Economic Zone Authority, the IT-BPM industry recorded a 43% increase in terms of investment pledges for the same period from January to September in 2020 in comparison to 2019. If we look at real estate as well, which is another key indicator, one of our big real estate broker here has recently released a study, and they showed that the industry currently accounts for 7.2 million square meters, or 48% of total occupied real estate space, commercial real estate space in the country. And according to the same study, 49% of the live office space requirements for the second half of 2020 is coming from this industry. Now, other prominent real estate entities have shared similar assessments, and with CBRE projecting that, in fact, 63% of transaction in the second half of 2020 is likewise expected to come from our sector. Now that we are operating at pre-COVID levels, the IT-BPM industry has been one of the few sectors that was able to remain operational throughout the community quarantine, providing livelihood for millions of Filipinos and their families amid the challenges of the health crisis. Now, opportunities within the industry continue to come in. Just based on recent conversations I've had with different country heads, and from what we've seen published in various news articles, there are over 30,000 job openings across the different subsectors. And we anticipate that there are, in fact, more. And if we look at, one of the online job portal here, which is JobStreet, for the past 6 months, the IT-BPM sector has been one of the top hiring industries. Now, speaking about growth potential, and this is a constant question I get, especially when I speak with potential locators, investors, media, they ask about what is it that we see moving forward, especially post-COVID. So, we recently completed a study where we engaged the Everest Group. And according to this recent study by our research partner, the industry has the potential to grow by a CAGR of 5.5% in revenue and another 5% in headcount leading to 2022. And this means that the industry, in fact, will continue to grow and achieve revenues closer to $30 billion by 2022 and add a total of 130,000 more jobs between now and 2022. To ensure that we are able to reach this growth projection, especially the higher end of the projection, we have a number of industry-wide programs that we are currently executing on with our partners in government, allied industries, academe, and even legislation. And perhaps allow me to just very quickly talk about this new program that we have, which we call Digital Cities by 2025. And this is something that we launched middle of the year in the midst of COVID, and it is aimed to drive inclusive growth in the countryside by selecting high potential areas throughout the country and transform them into bustling IT-BPM hubs within the next 5 years. So 25 potential digital cities were identified to be part of this program. And through the collaborative efforts with government, we're looking at new locations to add to our expanding portfolio of already thriving business districts outside of Metro Manila to create jobs, and spur the development of other sectors, as well as decongest Metro Manila and boost local economy. And if we can move on to the next slide, where we talk more about the talent that we have and our framework and our approach in our effort to ensure that the Philippine IT-BPM sector and our workforce is able to answer the growing and shifting demands of the global marketplace. IBPAP has been focusing on an upskilling and reskilling framework that, when fully funded, is aimed at skills development for 1 million Filipinos over a period of 5 years. Now, pending that, the National Upskilling and Reskilling Program, we've created 3 major learning tracks, and there's one on the domain skills learning track where we partner again with government and a number of learning institutions to upskill existing employees on top priority skills, mostly digital in nature, identified by the various and industry subsectors. We also have an initiative in the pipeline for the digital skills learning track, which aims to develop and establish partnerships with institutions and other enablers to provide upskilling programs, again, very focused on digital skills for the industry. And obviously, it will not be complete without a focus on leadership skills learning, where we are likewise partnering with leadership development resource parties in conducting leadership building sessions. Next slide, please. So perhaps just highlighting very quickly a couple of programs under talent attraction, which is the IT-BPM Career Awareness Fair and Returning Overseas Filipinos Job Opportunities Program. I will not get into a lot of that. Simply focusing on the Career Awareness Fair. This was launched in third quarter of this year, and it's a series of virtual events that provides IT-BPM experts a venue to encourage and reach out to potential talent out there with various career opportunities that are available in the sector. And just earlier this week, we also launched a new initiative in collaboration with a global program that Microsoft has, Locally, we are calling it the IT-BPM Skills and Knowledge Optimization through Online Learning Program, or SCHOOL. Again, this optimizes digital upskilling and reskilling for the industry by providing access to industry-relevant courses and industry-recognized certifications, predominantly free of charge for our community. I think this is where I have reached a point that I wrap up my brief presentation. Again, thank you for the opportunity to share with you some highlights of the IT BPM industry here in the Philippines. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Back to you, Christina.
Thank you very much, and Ray, for this comprehensive presentation, also for highlighting how much the Philippines have to offer. Especially that very busy slide was the one I think that for Austrian companies is getting really their attention. See, wow, there is so much that we can do here in the Philippines, and actually helping our own business grow further. So thank you very much. At that point, we move over a bit more to the west and to Malaysia, and it's going to be my colleague, Reinhard Zimmermann, who's taking over from here. I will be back for the Q&A session at the end.
Thank you very much, Christina. I hope you can hear me, everybody. So a heartily welcome from my side from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I would like to tell you a little bit about BPO and BPM in Malaysia, to give you some insights what this country can offer to you. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yes. If we take a small overview about the BPO, BPM, and contact center industry here in Malaysia, we speak of about 230 companies with a certain status, employing more than 50,000 people and having quite an impressive revenue and turnover per year. If we take even the whole industry covering customer service, care and support directly involved with clients, then we speak even for 10 times more, which counts for about 3% of the working population in Malaysia. So it's already quite a large portion of the population to be involved in this kind of services. The CX industry, my later expert from Malaysia will speak in much more detail, so I let this to the expert. If we take a recent study from A.T. Kearney, what's the name? The Global Services Location Index, GSLI, we can see that Malaysia, as a quite small country, has nevertheless a good share of 1.7% of the BPO market in Asia Pacific, and also has achieved quite good figures, which we'll see later on. So what we can see as a trend is that the starting IT outsourcing part in Malaysia is losing ground compared to business process outsourcing, and this should even surpass the IT outsourcing in the following years. If we see the annual growth rates, also they are quite high for the global business services, 10 to 15%, and for the business process outsourcing about 8% a year. So next, please. I think it's quite an important market here in Malaysia, and also the government is investing a lot in that. And we see that Malaysia gets good rankings. So in the latest A.T. Kearney Global Services Location Index, they've got the 3rd rank after India and China. And as you see here, especially the Asian economies are the first ones in the rankings. What we can say here for Malaysia, they are counting quite well in the field of financial attractiveness, business environment, and also now the digital resonance. They still have some limits with the availability of people because this sector is quite booming, but they're also investing heavily in upskilling the people. Yeah, I want to go a little bit more in detail of this ranking and what it means. So Malaysia stands for a world-class infrastructure, also internet infrastructure, and has shown already quite a great digital maturity in this development. But at the same time, they still have to invest more in the cybersecurity measures, which goes in parallel at the moment. So they were quite good in leveling out the lacks of availability of people by increasing their financial attractiveness and also by making the business environment more attractive, as well as building up the digital skills of the population and the workforce. There is an important organization here in Malaysia, MTech. They are helping with a lot of initiatives in order to increase the digital awareness and knowledge. I also think that my expert afterwards will speak more about this in detail. Below I have two success stories which were recently opened here in Malaysia. So let's come to the next slide. I want to tell you also some other reasons why Malaysia is a good location for BPO and BPM. Malaysia is always scoring very good in the doing business report of the World Bank. So of the whole world, it's the number 12 because of its attractiveness as a location. Malaysia stands also for a multi-ethnic population, and as a matter of fact, and also multilingual population, which is perfect for a contact center for sure. So they can cover a lot of different languages with native speakers, and at the same time, as you have a strong population of Muslims, of Indians, as well as Chinese, you can cover also a lot of different other interest groups, religions, cultural groups. Malaysia produces a lot of fresh graduates, and most of them have high proficiency in English, and as a matter of fact, they can very well upgrade the different services. There is more and more investment in digital knowledge with the young and technical workforce in order to go with the new needs in this industry. So it is also a country with high intellectual property rights and protection of copyrights, which is also very important. Yes. And now I'm coming already to the end to tell you a little bit of the latest trends in Malaysia and the industry related to business process outsourcing and management. What we see from different analysis, like the Forbes Technology Council, is that Malaysia started a little bit later in this industry, but it's catching up very, very fast. That they are investing more in how to say, service-focused IT, and they how to say, are leaving more and more the low-cost manufacturing parts and go much more into direction where digital knowledge and proficiency is necessary. They have a strong and young talent pool, and they invest also a lot in order to upskill them. We still see some limits of availability, but for the needs of Austrian companies, for instance, it's always very good coverable. What we also see is due to the trade war with China, as well as higher costs in other typical BPO countries like India, Malaysia is winning more and more importance as an alternative, especially for the high value tech outsourcing. And we see also the trend that the new and disruptive technologies have an impact on the services provided for BPO. And Malaysia is doing a lot in order to play an important role there. And so it gets more and more attractive for BPO and BPM services where, for instance, artificial intelligence is necessary or machine learning. So next, please. Yep, I'm at the end of my presentation. I say thank you very much for listening to me. Here you have my contact details. I'm happy to help you further. And now I would like to introduce you to my next speaker, Mr. Raymond Devadas. He is the founder and chief executive officer of Day3 Business Services, but he is also the president of the Contact Center Association of Malaysia, as well the treasurer of Outsourcing Malaysia. So I would say the best person in order to give you a good overview about what Malaysia offers is for these services much better than I am able to do this. Raymond specializes in providing strategic management direction, particularly in the field of digital transformation strategy and management. So Raymond, the floor is yours, please.
Reinhard, thank you very much. So good morning, everyone, and good afternoon to those of you in this part of the world. So Reinhard has done a very good job of selling a little bit of Malaysia, so that takes a lot of pressure off me. But my role today is basically to talk about customer experience and how are we optimizing technology. Just to put things into perspective, Malaysia is a very small economy in the sense that we have a population of 30 to 32 million people, of which about 50% of them contribute to the economy. So you have about a 15 million working population, and as Reinhard mentioned earlier, there's a very small population in comparison to some of the other countries that also provide similar work and similar services. So one of the things that we have done as a nation to strategize is to look at higher value end jobs, looking up at the higher value chain. Because we are not able to scale up given the number of people and the size of the population, we have chosen to take a different route where we, as Reinhard mentioned again earlier, we are able to show ourselves as a multilingual hub, being able to support close to 50 different languages and dialects from one country. And number two is also the need for now, with the advent of Industrial Revolution 4.0 and this new technologies and new tools, how do we get our people to sort of embrace this new technology and to be able to use this technology in our work processes? And that has been a differentiating factor for the Malaysian companies who are involved in the BPM industry. So if I can go on to the next slide. Yeah, I think I'll skip this and just move on very quickly to the next. Reinhard has already covered quite a bit in terms of the strategy. Yeah, so as I was mentioning earlier, MDEC, who is an organization that takes care of a lot of the, is a government agency that takes care of the BPM business here. Based on their report, says that we have about close to 220 MSC companies employing 50,000 people directly involved in this business and generating a revenue of about 2.5 billion. But if you put in the entire ecosystem, which is those involved in the banking, financial services, telecommunications, and retail space, the Malaysian population, almost 500,000 of us, are involved directly in the business of looking after customers, and that accounts to about almost 3% of the population, which is a sizable amount. Next slide, please. And really what has happened in the last 20 years is that there's been a major shift in experience that customer service industry delivers. It has shifted from traditional contact center or customer experience work to an omni-channel customer engagement. And that has been the talk over the last 4 or 5 years. And I'm sure it is the same in Europe as well, where we talk about omni-channel and being able to deliver omni-channel services. In Malaysia, we have gone in the last 2 years, I would say the last 24 months, we have moved on from sort of providing an omni-channel service to looking at how can we provide intelligent solutions. How can we position ourselves as providing an intelligent solution center for our customers? And therefore, you begin to see that technology has always played an important role in the development of CX. And in this time that we see that competition is tough, economies are volatile in most parts of the world, and maintaining and establishing a profitable business is important. And that is where customer service function plays its role in delivering and providing quality CX or customer experience to individual customers as part of to cater for their preferences, their needs, and their satisfactions. So really, we see that technological advancements in the past have focused only on better and better customer service and improving efficiency for organizations. Today, the global customer experience industry is undergoing a major revolution as a result of automation, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. And if you see at the right-hand corner of the slide, that is where we are focusing. The entire nation, the entire industry is focusing on how do we embed these new tools, how do we embed these new technologies, how do we embed a new digital culture in our BPM organizations. And the government has been putting a lot of money, a lot of funds, and a lot of investment in sort of transcending our people and transcending our talent to move from what was providing higher value services to providing innovative services for our clients. Next slide, please. So the new cutting edge technologies, the scope of with the advent of these technologies, the customer experience function has increased exponentially and is more important for the success of business than ever before. Customer experience is considered as one of the most technically sophisticated operations, having a wide range of responsibilities and applications within an organization. And these new disruptive technologies are forcing us to rethink the way we operate. Although these disruptive technologies play a large part across an array of industry, I will argue that the customer experience function will witness the greatest change. And that is why, once again, Malaysia is taking a serious look at how we can transcend our people. So the question really comes, how do we take advantage of these opportunities with all these new technology tools available for everyone? How can we grow careers? How can we grow organizations? How can we grow profits? And how can we grow Malaysia? And these are the questions that are keeping me awake at night as the president of the contact center of Malaysia, as to how do we move and transcend our people into the next level. And that's happening in a very fast pace. So I just want to share with you a little bit. The topic that was given to me was to talk about customer experience and how do we elevate customer experience using technology. And let me take this opportunity in the next 5 to 10 minutes to share with you some of the emerging trends that's happening in the industry and how that is changing our industry and how the nation as a whole is beginning to embrace some of these new technologies. So the next slide, please. And I'm sure you're aware, cloud-based services have become so important for us, especially in the time of COVID. We've learned how many organizations have always been debating whether do we run on an on-prem solution or do we run a cloud solution. And that has become so important today, the need to have cloud services for us to be able to work from home. In Malaysia, we have transcended very well during the COVID experience. Within 48 hours, almost 100% of our operations in the BPM sector was able to transcend or transition from work from office to work from home. And that is primarily because of, I would say, one critical factor that we have is that, and Reinhard touched about this a little bit earlier, is that we have 85% internet penetration rate in urban and in suburban areas. So that gave us the ability to very quickly shift people out from their offices to be able to work from home. You and I today are in this conference today, very seamless, and mainly because of the internet connectivity that we have, and that has really worked well for our industry, and that has true to become very important during this period of being able to provide a solution where we can work from home. And today, this ability or to have this infrastructure, we are getting a lot of inquiries for a lot of global companies who either want to set up their operations in Malaysia as a primary site or maybe even as a backup site. because of the ability of our people to be able to pivot themselves to work from home very quickly. Next slide, please. The second thing that we are talking about is, and I think the whole world is talking about, is AI and the use of AI and machine learning. That has become so important in the area of customer experience and providing customer service. The use of AI features and applications can help us streamline the experience for our customer service executives. So adopting AI and AI applications continue for call routing in the contact centers and other processes that may be applied to improve efficiency and performance. In this, predictive analysis using AI will also make it possible for us to better understand our customer needs. And today we are once again beginning to train, we are beginning to reskill, and we are beginning to put a lot of money in investment in our companies to be able to infuse artificial intelligence into the processes that we are managing for our global clients. Next slide. Another trend that is appearing is also that the need for the provision of self-service and also automation. You may have heard of using the use of software bots or robotics process automation. That has become again another key strength in a lot of BPO companies in Malaysia today, where they are beginning to embrace technology such as robotics process automation to take on repetitive transactions and to take on transactions that are voluminous, repetitive, and rule-based. And with the advent of AI as well, these bots are beginning to take over non-structured transactional work. And that again, if you begin to talk to a lot of Malaysian BPO companies, they will be able to provide you with solutions that will cater for artificial intelligence, as well as to cater for you for robotics process automation. Another trend, if I can go to the next slide, is looking at speech analytics. That's another tool that has been used by a lot of organizations here in wanting, or rather in being able to sort of analyze emotions and to analyze, well, more than emotions is also the feelings involved in the interactions that they have with their customers. So a lot of these technologies such as speech analytics help us to understand the needs of the customers, help us to understand the needs of all stakeholders. And this is again being used as an analytical tool to be able to provide better service for our clients. And one of the reasons is because we realize that when we listen to clients and we listen to their emotions, there is the stickiness that about 90% probability that the customer will continue to be with you. And that customer, the word customer I use very loosely here because it could be your external customer, or it could be even your internal customers if you're running shared services. And perhaps the other thing that is really changing the industry today is the use of big data and also dark data. A lot of data that we collect as running a business process management company is usually hidden or even not even used across the business process. But this data is considered as gold mine and information that provides insights to customer behavior. Again, we are investing a lot of time and effort in being able to provide analytical tools for customers here, for global customers here, to be able to dissect dark data and again to give a more meaningful interaction to a lot of our customers and clients. I just want to touch on two more points, perhaps, that is really changing the landscape of the industry today is the need for knowledge management. Search engines are prime examples of how search-based solutions are used today, and knowledge management in the customer experience industry has emerged as a successful practice to deliver good results and enhance performance and systems. Next slide, please. And last but not least, Reinhard also touched a little bit about on security, and this becomes more and more important. There was a recent data that was published very recently that in Southeast Asia there are about 360 million people who go online to do to accept and to embrace digital services. During the COVID period, there was an increase of 40 million. Today, there are about 400 million people in Southeast Asia who are accessing to digital services. And 1 out of 3 people who are accessing to these services are new entries, people who are consuming, new people who are consuming these digital services. And these are people who have come on board online during this COVID period. And the survey continues to go on to say that 90% of these people will not go back to the traditional way of doing things, that they have embraced this entire digital culture. And what that really means is that as we move from offline to online, security becomes even more important. eKYC, or know your customer, or know the person who's across on the other line interacting with you, becomes so important. And a lot of money and investment once again is going into new security technologies such as voice biometrics, and also other technologies to provide a platform, a secure platform for online transactions. Next slide, please. So I've touched very quickly in terms of a broad perspective of the technologies that is really the mega trends that are really changing the industry and really changing the customer service industry as a whole, not just in Malaysia but worldwide. What's different is that we've identified as an association, as an industry, we've identified that these are some of the global trends that is going to change this industry. And this is how we are shaping our digital culture, shaping our strategy towards being able to support some of these mega trends that's happening. But despite saying all of this, despite having all these digital tools, you can never get rid of the human. That becomes the most important thing. These tools are there to help us achieve a goal, which is to provide excellent customer experience or better customer experience. But it will not replace the human. At the end of the day, when you have a complex transaction or interaction, you want to talk to someone, you want to have that empathy. And these are things that today, as an industry, what is happening is that we are beginning to use all these tools available to help the executive make this decision-making process together with available technology that's readily accessible for the industry. The next slide, please. So I just want to share a little bit about the COVID experience, and many of us would have gone through many conferences in the last couple of years, and they spoke about the VUCA world. If you've heard of that, VUCA, volatility and complexity. But who would have thought that we had to deal with a global pandemic in 2020? Nobody thought that we would get into a lockdown. And really what has happened is that the entire industry has moved to a low touch economy, or what I like to call it either contactless or contactless economy. And we've really moved on to that whole idea of embracing online, moving from offline to online. And the past few months have been, really, I will say, been unprecedented for all of us. Despite having beautiful PowerPoints to say, even as far back as in January, when we realized that we could enter into a potential lockdown, the PowerPoints were beautiful. But when it came to March, when we had to execute on them, I must say it wasn't easy, because that's where the nuts and bolts are, and really that's where the devil is in the details, so to speak. And I'm glad to say that we've able to transcend, and we've been able to move through this period as an industry. And today, I'm glad to hear that even the Philippines, Ray shared earlier that the industry over there has achieved 90 to 95% normalcy, and that happened here too, but very, very quickly. Within the first 14 to 15 days, we almost went back to 90 to 95%. The industry, very similar to the Philippines as well, with the help of the government, was declared as an essential service, and therefore people who needed to go to work could go back to work in this space, and then people also stayed at home. So today, typically in the entire industry, we have people working from home, people working from part of the workforce working from the office, and also part of the workforce working from multiple sites, and from also from alternate sites. Yep. So I've sort of come to the end of my presentation. I want to just keep it very short, but just to highlight with you that what's happening in Malaysia today is that we're placing a lot of emphasis, a lot of importance in the area of digital transformation of the culture of the organizations, transformation of the mindset, and that's the overarching agenda or strategy for the BPM industry and the global business services industry in Malaysia. Thank you. With that, I hand it over back to Christina. Oh, is it
Or
right?
to me, Raymond? Yes, take it over. Thank you very much. Thanks, Raymond, for your words. I think it's a good way to see that global business services could be the right partner for companies to enter into the new technologies, disruptive technologies like artificial intelligence, etc. Even easier than to do it alone without an efficient partner. Now we come to a company testimonial. I'm very happy to have Swarovski on board, and Mr. Gagandeep Singh will not talk about the Swarovski jewels, but about the global business services. Swarovski has 3 different GPS locations in the world. One is here in Malaysia. I'm very happy of that. More than 100 people working here in Penang, Malaysia. And Gagandeep has a long experience in this field already. He is now the managing director of Global Business Services Spoke Asia Pacific at Swarovski, already for more than 3 years. And he built up this location here and serving more than 30,000 end users in the Swarovski group worldwide with finance, IT, HR, procurement services, and a lot more. So I'm happy to have Gagandeep here, and it's up to you, Gagandeep, now.
Thank you, Reinhard. A very warm good morning from sunny Penang. It's 30 degrees out here today, so it's certainly a very warm afternoon over here. Let me start off by, first of all, sharing a short clip of Swarovski. If you could kindly play the video. Okay, that was a quick glance of Swarovski's 125th anniversary. As you saw, we are celebrating our 125th anniversary, and we've been since then adding sparkle to people's everyday lives. As you may know, Swarovski Group is headquartered in Austria and in Switzerland. The group is made of 3 main businesses: Swarovski Crystal Business, Swarovski Optic, and Tyrolit. So these 3 businesses make up the group. Next slide, please. Right. So this Swarovski at the moment is headed by the executive board, 3 family members who form the decision making body for Swarovski Crystal Business. Next slide. Right. So as you can imagine, we are spread all over the world. We have, for Swarovski Crystal Business, we have roughly 3,000 stores worldwide and 7 production locations. But just remember, the crystals that you find for Swarovski, they are only made in 1 location, and that is actually in Wattens in Austria. Right, so let me go a little bit deeper into the global business services of Swarovski, as we call it, hub and spokes. As you may know, global business services normally means having multifunctional services being provided from multiple locations. Idea is to drive efficiency, and obviously the global business industries for companies also evolve based on the needs and the market, right? So this is how we have also set up the global business services in Swarovski. As Reinhard mentioned at the beginning, we have 3 locations today selected that have been set up as global business services. The first one is in Poland, which was set up 4 years ago. Then is the office in Malaysia, in the state of Penang, which was set up about 3.5 years ago. And finally, Costa Rica, which was set up in October 2017. So 3 locations providing global business services throughout the Swarovski community. This is a quick snapshot of the services that we provide in overall in global business services. 4 main pillars, as you can see: finance operations, HR operations, customer service, global master data, and IT operations. And many of these services are also provided out of our office in Penang, right? So, I mean, there was a question on why Penang. I mean, let me just share some personal, let's say, experience. When it comes to talent availability, the talent pool in Penang is pretty good, multilingual. We always joke, if you were to throw a stone in the crowd in Penang, it's probably going to hit someone who is in the global business services industry. So talent is easily available. It's also, as we saw from the previous presenters, it's a global business services or shared services is a booming industry in Malaysia, especially in the last decade. And Penang has been moving up the trajectory in the service industry too. What else? Excellent infrastructure. There's a huge support from the government, incentive-wise, to set up shared services or global services in Malaysia. And if I may end my presentation by just saying lastly, the USP of Penang, I mean, is its uniqueness. Just to give you an example, during this pandemic, and many months ago, there was a lockdown. We couldn't travel interstate. I couldn't have wished for a better place to be, which was in Penang. 15 minutes away, we have lovely beaches, we have mountains, nature, fantastic food. In fact, Penang is known as one of the top tourist destinations domestically and also in the region. And combining this with a booming business environment, it just makes Penang self-contained, self-sustainable, and is a great place to be. So also from a work-life balance, having the talent, having the infrastructure, having the support from the government has made the work that we do today from Penang for Swarovski pretty seamless. So this is a quick introduction of our organization here in Penang. Thank you. Over to you, Reinhard.
Thank you very much. It's actually gonna be me again taking over. So, thank you so much, Gagandeep, for your presentation and the sparkles of Swarovski, and also for the nice little hint of the beach that is like 15 minutes away. Yeah, that was a smart move for for Austrians now being stuck in the cold and the gray. And yeah, thank you on behalf of our Austrian audience. Thank you for that. But I mean, we have for the Philippines. I still need to hold out that flag. We have 7,600 and something more islands. So we also do have some nice beaches. And please, as soon as traveling is possible again, business travel is possible again, please come and visit me and my colleague, Reinhard, in Malaysia and the Philippines, and see what our countries also have to offer for Austrian companies. I know it's the Q&A session, and I provided a slide for that. Before we go to that, I just wanted to apologize on behalf of my testimonial, which was Mr. Jochen Bitzer. He is the president of Mercedes services here and working for the Daimler Group. Obviously, they have a huge operation here in Cebu and in Clark. Unfortunately, Mercedes called in for an internal meeting that he could not miss. So he provided us with a video that we will upload on the YouTube recording that you will see. So please don't miss out on listening to Mr. Pitzer, who is talking from Cebu, which is also 15 minutes away from wonderful beaches.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share the Mercedes-Benz Group service story with you. My name is Jochen Pitzer and I'm the President and CEO of the Captive Shared Service Center of the Daimler Group in the Philippines. Shared Service Center in Daimler started in 2006 in Madrid with our nearshore center, followed by Berlin, our onshore center, and in 2011 with the setup of our offshore center in the Philippines. All three shared service centers are purely captive and serve several hundred of entities all over the world within the Daimler Group. In 2011, during the evaluation of locations in different countries, Cebu in the Philippines was chosen as the offshore location. Excellent English skills and availability of the necessary skill sets in the Philippines were strong arguments for this decision. From 2011 until 2020, we developed from an Asian-focused shared service center to a worldwide covering shared service center, including Americas, Europe, and Germany. We serve these customers all in their respective time zone and beyond. To cover this demand, we installed the 24/5 operations. Our first focus was on accounting and controlling and develops now also in areas like logistics support service and human resource. Since 2011, we reached a level of approximately 600 employees, which we spread over 2 locations in Cebu and Clark in the Philippines. The strong link to our German headquarters increased in the past years the demand for German language capabilities within our company. The demand to cover German language depending processes will increase in the future year over year. This will be still necessary even if we use delanguaging tools during our daily work. To cover this high demand on German-speaking employees, we installed an internal German language center and encourage our employees to pursue their further education into the German language. As a demand of future cost-saving activities, we expect that further processes will be migrated to the Philippines and the coverage of processes to other functions will be extended. Available skill sets in Cebu and Clark help us to cover these future demands. Overall, Mercedes-Benz Group service journey can be described as a very successful implementation of a shared service center. I hope this short summary showed you what is possible to achieve with the offshoring approach of processes, in our case as a captive, but also applicable as a BPO. Thank you for giving me the time to share our journey. Your Jochen Pitzer.
I think if people will still bear with us for a couple of minutes, there was one question that came up, and that was I think sums it up pretty nicely as a question from Austrian companies that are interested in the services that you provide here in Malaysia and the Philippines. Is how do we find the talent? How do we find companies that are offering all the things that you mentioned? Is there a link? Is there an association that we can talk to? How do we actually get to the one? How do we make the connection? So I'm asking if Ray is still here, and I'm very happy that Ray. How do you? I mean, we've seen that one slide that you presented, with those many different colors and many different services, and I think everybody should go back and have a look at that slide for a while. How do you find the ones that are so perfectly equipped to provide these services?
So thank you for that question, Christina. And I suppose people should really watch the replay of this video. But the quickest response that I have to that question is for them to reach out to us directly, or me directly. That's Ray Untal at ibpap.org. And if I may just request for the organizer to share that with everybody who's listening into this webinar. We will be your natural first stop if you have any interest to locate here in the Philippines. Again, I just would like to emphasize that we are truly open for business and we welcome your business. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, to the audience, it took me 4 months to get the email of Ray, and you got it right here. So, I mean, I don't know. I did something. I did something wrong, or he's in a really generous mood. So take advantage of that. You got his email. I did not for 4 months. So thank you very much. But Malaysia, do you have any emails to offer at that point?
Yeah, sure. I think Reinhard briefly mentioned earlier during my profile that that I'm the president of the Contact Center of Association of Malaysia. If you are interested in outsourcing some of the contact center work, there's this association, Contact Center Association of Malaysia. You can find us on www.ccam.com.my. Or if you are interested in looking at business process management as a whole, then there's another organization called Outsourcing Malaysia. You can also find that on the web. Or the easiest way is to reach out to me through LinkedIn. That will be the easiest way.
I can testimony to that. That's true. You reach out to him, you get him right there, and he texts you everywhere. That's a great one.
Thank you.
I have one more question, which is actually also a bit of a personal question, or something that is that I would like to ask Ray and also Raymond and Gandhi at the end. If you can say there is one reason for doing outsourcing of business processes, what would be, when you talk to a company, what would be, you say, okay, this is it, this is the reason. There are many reasons, we know that, but the one reason that really helps you grow through outsourcing, what would be the one that you would say as the top?
Yeah, maybe I can take a stab on that one first, Christina. And unfortunately, there is not only one answer, especially in the bigger context of where we are at right now. We are on the cusp of a new normal where we need to be reimagining work. We need to be reimagining workplaces and even reimagining workforces. But here in the Philippines, there are quite a number of things that remain constant. Number one, we have an abundant and steady supply of young, tech-savvy, emphatic, and really skilled workforce. And these are mentored by more seasoned individuals that have gone through at least 3 decades of this. And here in the Philippines, we continue to be the premier outsourcing destination where labor and cost arbitrage remain very competitive. And then you add all other intangibles, right? And I can rant on for a few more minutes, but I'll pause there. I think those two are the maybe main highlights of why so many companies, 1,300 of them, employing 1.3 million Filipinos now, are here.
Thank you again. Just sums it up in a nutshell. Thank you. But the gentleman in Malaysia would like to add something.
Yeah, sure.
Sitting on the same color, so maybe I get Raymond to talk at that point.
Sure, yeah, talking about same colors, if you notice my t-shirt says day 3 because I also run my own BPO company. The work as president of an association is just doesn't bring bread to the table. It doesn't pay me anything. It's voluntarily for the industry. But I run my own BPO company, and I get, very often I meet with a lot of business owners who ask this question: why should I outsource? I think if you look at the industry as a whole, and I think when we talked about outsourcing about 20 years ago, the main push factor was always labor arbitrage, and organizations would search offshore or outsource some parts of their operations simply because cost was cheaper in certain countries. And I think that's how it started as a whole. But I think to 20 years forward, things have changed. It's no longer just about labor arbitrage. It's about acquiring technical expertise. It's not just about the price anymore. So a lot of organizations who choose to spend their money and invest their money in resources in different parts of their businesses choose their non-core operations as operations which could be run by someone else. And that's typically that. I think for as you look at yourselves as your organization, you got to realize that there's limited resources and there's only one or two things that you want to be good at. And the third or fourth item which you feel that may be secondary, these are areas that you could pick outsourcing companies or service providers who could do better than you. So for me, that thought process has to go through in every organization, and it's different for every organization. What is important for one organization may not be important for the other. So that process has to take place, that self-discovery process has to take place before you decide whether it makes sense for you to outsource.
Okay. Thank you very much. I know we are running way over time already, so but people are still with us, so I just take one last question. This would be actually a question for our friend from Swarovski. I don't know how much of it you can share, but there was one question that said if you were able to share which other locations Swarovski had considered for outsourcing, if that is something that you can say. If you cannot say it or you don't know it, that is fine too.
Right. So let's just say I started work with Swarovski when the location was already selected. So they selected Penang, and I'm a Malaysian. And from Kuala Lumpur, I traveled 300 kilometers north and came to Penang and set up. I always thought of retiring one day in Penang in Malaysia. I never knew I would actually be coming here to be setting up a shared services from scratch. So that's what brought me here. So to answer the question, no. So I basically am not too sure about what location, which specific location they went for, but I'm so glad they made the right decision, which is Penang. Yeah.
Well, I'm happy that you are happy. So that makes it today. Okay, I think Reinhard, if you agree, I would say we close it here. It's 5:15 here in Malaysia and the Philippines, and we let people in Austria get to work. I really hope that you got a good insight in what those two countries have to offer in an industry that is growing, that is booming, that is going to be increasingly important, especially in a time after COVID. And please, whenever you have a question, Reinhard and we are here to help you. You even got the private email of Ray, so you consider yourself very, very fortunate. And if there, of course, you will receive the presentations later on, including the private email of Ray. I just cannot say that enough. But again, Reinhard and we are here for any further questions you might have. Please do consider Philippines and Malaysia for that kind of strategic investment of your business operations. At that point, dear friends, family, business partners in Austria, hold tight. The lockdown is going to be over soon, and it's going to be Christmas, and then it's going to be the New Year, and everything is going to be much better in 2021. I promise you that. If not, you just come back here to Manila, to the Philippines, and I take you out for a drink because, so just to make that even again. At that point, thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Thank you so much to Ray for being here. Thank you, Raymond, for sharing your insights, your thoughts to the trend. And thank you for the sparkling Kanadeep Singh for his presentation on that. Don't miss out the Mercedes part on the YouTube channel later on. Thank you also, Reinhard, for joining me in this webinar and adding your insights to that, your great insights. Always a pleasure having such a wonderful colleague working with me. Okay, thank you, everybody. And Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and see you all soon in the next year. Thank you. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye. All the best.
Bye.